Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our Success Thursday this week with Caterina Reinke. Hey Caterina, welcome back.
Hello Vasco.
So Caterina, on Thursdays, we talk about what success means for us as Scrum Masters, obviously because that is critical for our own self-reflection and growth. But before we dive into that, let's talk about a different type of reflection, the team's own self-reflection, the retrospectives, of course. So share with us, what's your favorite retrospective format and why?
I think there are really many formats out there I really like, but one I usually tend to when there's like a special occasion or when the team is at a turning point or some other important thing happening, I really like the sailboat retrospective for that because it draws so many different perspectives on the teams and really focuses on the team as a whole and how they're working together. But when I need something more like a go-to thing, I always have in my little pocket with me, I really like the 5 whys because it's so easy. You don't have to explain anything. You can just start with it. And you can either spend 5 minutes or 50 minutes and you will always discover something new, something interesting, and something that is more deeper than the surface shows at the beginning.
Indeed, because the 5 whys is a method of thinking. One could even call it a philosophical method of thinking to discover what's beyond what is already known, right? It very much reminds me of the when I was in high school and started to hear about philosophy and the history of philosophy, which we studied at that time. And I was always thinking, like, why did these people, for some reason, just continue to ask why? Like, why did they start asking why in the first place? And why didn't they stop, right? And of course, many years later, I start my career as a project manager at the time. I start learning about lean management, and then I find the 5 whys, which is a root cause analysis tool. Now that I know that, I understand, what is its role. But as you describe it, within a team, it can help the team go beyond what they accept as given, right? Like it goes beyond what they see. And for me, one of the key things about that is also how we ask the questions, because it's not literally 5 whys. It's 5 questions in the direction of why, right? And how about you, Caterina? What tips can you share with us about how to involve the team in that process? Because, if you just ask why, it can be quite intimidating.
Yeah, and also not that helpful. So usually I also try to guide them with a more specific why question when I feel like they are not sure about a certain aspect, or when I see there's more consensus about something, and then go more specific in a certain direction at some point. And the other thing I found really helpful is together with the team to draw new lines between the aspects they mentioned in the different stages of the whys. What is actually connected, and do we see some pattern maybe arising? And is there something we haven't discovered before? And to really visualize the 5 whys, I think that is also key, not just to ask them out in the open and then things buff in the air.
So how do you visualize? Like what do you usually use to visualize these 5 whys?
Or you can use whatever you have on hand. If it's a whiteboard and an on-site setting, use the whiteboard, use Post-its, I don't know, use paper. Nothing
so like a sequence
needed.
Of Post-its, right? Like,
yeah,
okay, this is the first why, and then we, okay, cool.
Yeah, or you just have like a letter down, and the same with online tools like Miro or Mural, or just like any simple whiteboard, or even PowerPoint is working.
Yeah, even PowerPoint works. Indeed. In fact, PowerPoint may have been the first whiteboard for online meetings, although it wasn't shared at the time. Only one person could edit
And
it.
it's also not so comfortable using it, to be honest.
That is true. That is true.
But it's working.
But it does work. I mean, I used to work at Nokia, and we called Nokia headquarters the PowerPoint Palace, because that's where all the PowerPoints came from, and everybody worked with PowerPoints. All the meetings had PowerPoint.
Yeah.
That's how people communicated at the time, the good old times. Now we have amazing tools like Miro and Mural, and even a very simple tool which I love, which is Jamboard by Google, and focused on collaboration, which I think is a huge.
And I think there are still many PowerPoints out there.
There are.
Being read,
I still
being
use PowerPoint, so like maybe it's my education as a project manager still showing. All right, so this was the retrospective, of course, but now we want to hear about success and what success means for you as a Scrum Master, Caterina. So share that with us.
So for me and my work, I think the most important part is transparency, for me to know what I'm working on and why, and also for the people around me, that they know what my current things are that I want to improve for the team, for instance. So I really like to use a thing called continuous improvement roadmap, where I just make a little roadmap for myself, for the team. What do I want to improve this week, in the next sprint, and the next bigger iteration like a PI or a quarter, and map it out, and then share this also, not just for myself, but make it part of the sprint review, of the system demo in a safe context, for instance. Also talk about this organizational change from time to time. I think that is very important and a very good means of making success and change measurable and to make it that people feel it, because especially this cultural change, it's so hard to measure it, and I'm not really a big fan of questionnaires and all these tracking tools, surveys. You can get some interesting insights from it, but what you do with it in the end, and is it really the things that you want to focus on? And so for me, that's not really a helpful way of tracking success, to be honest. So
so tell us a little bit more about this continuous improvement roadmap. So we know that it's to help create transparency, both for you and for the team. Mm-hmm. But how do you manage it? Like, do you have a specific process you go through? How do you involve the team in looking and reviewing it? Mm-hmm. What's your process for that continuous improvement roadmap?
Yeah, so usually the bigger items in this improvement roadmap are from the retrospective, the inspect and adapt event that we have at the end of a PI or at the end of a project. So like when there's a bigger thing happening, usually you always have that in whatever setting you are working on. Is it safe or not safe? You always have like bigger chunks of time. And when you have a bigger retrospective there, I draw the biggest inspiration for the items I put in there. Maybe we want to focus on the business owner role, for instance, to involve our stakeholders better. Okay, that is something we want to do. And then I create action items for it. Just like then I'm a product owner of my little improvement roadmap.
That's actually a great metaphor, right? Because we're talking to Scrum Masters, and this is true. We need to be the product owners of our own continuous improvement roadmap, and of course, make sure we get our stakeholders to influence that roadmap, right? Not just the team itself, but product owner, team managers, other teams, etc.
And then you have an actionable list of things you can do. And you can prioritize them. You can formulate acceptance criteria for them. And I think it's twofold thing. One thing is that it makes your work as a Scrum Master more transparent, your value you bring to a team more transparent. You can check things off. And the other thing is that you can get into the shoes of the product owner and also of the team, what it feels like to actually work with a product backlog, because you have your little project yourself. We can try everything out and really create product backlog items, and then also be a helpful sparring partner to your product owner. For me, that is always really helpful to be reminded what it is to work with a backlog.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't help others do it if we don't know how to do it, right? That's a very good point. And if we look at continuous improvement backlog as a tool we use, then we learn to use it better and can help others also learn to use that kind of tool, a backlog, better. Caterina, thank you very much for sharing all of these great ideas.
Thank you, Vasco, for giving me the opportunity to share it.
Part of a successful Scrum Master job is to help the product owner. Tomorrow we explore that critical role in Scrum, the product owner role. Tune in to learn about product owner anti-patterns, what you can do to help the product owner, and a real-life example of what a great product owner is and what made it so. Tomorrow on our Friday Product Owner episode. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.